What's up, good people? Leo niko na mwanafilamu hapo, Mr. Biko Nyongesa. Is a film director, is an actor, but I'll let him do the introduction for himself. So, how do you describe yourself?
I describe myself as a filmpreneur, but most importantly for the specifics of it, I'm first an actor, and then a director, and then a creator. But I'm also a lecturer of the performing arts in the university. Yes.
What are some of the works that you've directed?
Some of the works that I've directed in date way back to 2011, and this is my first film, Hi-Fi Key, which I did while still in campus, followed by Rolling On, another short film, and then followed by Get Some Money, another short film that premiered in the first inaugural Matcha Fest. And then after that I was done with short films for a while, went into my first feature, which was Get Some Money, that I did because courtesy of the prize money that we had won in Machakos Fest in 2015. So we used that to do the first feature, and I took a break kidogo and then did another short concept film that I really didn't want to be a short film. It was a concept film, but I've not managed to do the feature of it. And then lastly, 2023, I did When the Gods Argue, my second feature. And currently I'm working on my third.
Okay, so I want us to talk about your vision and style of directing. How can you describe your style and vision when it comes to directing?
I really don't have a particular style per se, but I'll say I'm less of a technical director and more of a creative director, or performative director, I'd say, something like that, because I have a background of acting. So I kind of work with the story just as any director would do, and entrust my technical to the technical team, but I'm always really keen on the performative sides of of whoever I am working with. So I concentrate a little bit. I can say I have a bias on my performance, because on the technical I choose the best. Actually, I don't gamble with that, so that I never have to worry about that. So it would be a mix of both, although you as a director, clearly you have to have an understanding of the technical side so that you even choose the best. So for me, that would be it.
So we know that directing involves elements, and as for you, what can you say are those particular elements that describe your work as a director?
Elements?
Yeah.
Like what?
You tell us.
I don't know the elements ni mingi. Kuna story, kuna performance, there's the technical elements and so on and so forth. So I would, maybe if you would be specific, then I would explain what do you mean elements.
Okay.
Yeah.
So okay, you've mentioned to us some of the works that you've managed to do. Great works, by the way.
Have you seen them?
We've seen them.
Yeah.
I've seen you on Subterranean.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So from the works that you've managed to do, can you say that there's that particular theme in the films that you've been able to do?
Particular theme?
Yeah. Like there's that recurring theme.
For me, it's usually spirituality. Yes, spirituality, because I feel a lot of people are always avoiding the aspect of spirituality, but concentrate on love mostly, okay, and crime. In fact, Kenyan, I think the to-go-to trope for many Kenyan filmmakers is always crime. There's always guns, there's always blah blah and all that, and a lot of also love gone wrong or right or everything, and family. But for me, I combine all that because in all this aspect there's always an element of spirituality. Everybody looks for something to believe in. I think that's what makes us human. As psychological beings, we are always looking for something to believe in, and we have held spirituality in all forms in very high regard, and sometimes very fearful regards that we don't even want to tackle that. So I usually feel that that gives me an edge, and I, just go straight up for spirituality.
How can you say they have influenced you, like based on your personal or worldly like experiences?
How they've influenced me?
Yeah.
They've made me believe in myself more, because when there's if I look at it, the industry is a crowd, and that crowd is on one side and I'm on the other side. So I always, when I find myself in situations like that, I believe in myself more because I know now I'm doing something different, and different is good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then you've done filmmaking for a long time now. And what can you say like are those major influences, and how have they shaped like your work right now as a director?
First of all, the works of others, works of my predecessors, people that have come before me, and what they've done. I was influenced because for me, I'm a 90s kid, and if you look at Kenyan filmmakers who are making films in the 90s, they were handling topical issues that are just not crime. I don't know if crime hadn't seeped into the community yet, but the stories were different, and some of them were my lecturers, and through them being my lecturers, they screened our films. And when I got to that first instance where I was looking at the films that they have, for example, somebody like Wanjiru Kinyanjui did a film that's called The Battle of the Sacred Tree, and I think it was a very interesting film. It had all the themes that society would have, and it revolved around, again, what I'm saying, just the spirituality, because it was about the Mugumo tree and all that, but it was a very interesting story. There was Saikati by Anne Mungai, and then there was The Bicycle by Ingolo Wakea. There was The Married Bachelor by, again, Ingolo Wakea, and actually my dad was the producer of the film. So these are films that influenced how I tell my stories right now.
Nice. So like based on the people that you've mentioned, can you say that these are the same people who influenced you maybe to have an interest in directing, or do you have other directors who have influenced your work?
Oh, basically yes, but the first influence was definitely my dad, because when we were young, he screened that film for us, and I saw it and I was intrigued. Like, this is the person I know, and I'm seeing them on the other end of the screen, and they told this story. So I asked him how they went about it and all that, and he shared that with me. Of course, that was when I was young, and it just sparked interest. But when I came to study film in the university and experienced the more works of these producers or these directors that I've mentioned, and even got to watch more works and started getting works in the industry, that's when I realized that, okay, I also want to do this. Plus, for me, I came into the university with the intention of being a film director. There was no in between. Acting was just a fallback plan, because I found out that the directing spots were already crowded. So I had to find a way in, and that was by being an actor. I realized by being an actor, you sit in front of directors and get to learn from them. So it was a shortcut to, ilikuwa works.
Yeah. Do they still continue to influence your work right now?
They do. They do. However, most of them do not practice actively as it is right now. But it stuck with me. However, there are new works right now. You also have to evolve as a creative. You have to evolve. Like, you can't just be sticking in that. There are new ways of storytelling right now, new camera techniques and all that. So there are newer directors, newer filmmakers, newer creatives that are influencing my work right now.
Nice. I know you as a very creative person. I've seen your work. So how can you describe your creative process, right from coming up with the concept until you come to the later part, which is the final cut? How can you describe that part?
First of all, I don't ignore my ideas at all, because sometimes you can fall into the trap of ignoring your ideas. And as creatives, because we just pick something from our mind shelves, you might tend to suffer imposter syndrome and think that yours is not good, and that's the first thing that makes you ignore your idea. So for me, I don't ignore my ideas at all. I'd rather put them down and not like produce them but I don't ignore them. That's the first one. Secondly, I have to have a strong follow through, because an idea alone is not enough. If you don't follow through with that idea and develop it into something, a concept or something, then it will never see the light of day. So my follow through is very, very strong. Once I put my idea down, the follow through of development, then putting it into development is very strong. And after that, I do a lot of research. And I usually say research is anything from reading to talking to people to experiencing works like this to just visiting other people's set to watching things that are there in the internet, reading previous texts, to watching things for as far back as the 1900s to present to whatever people are putting in place. That's research. So after that, I consolidate my idea and see, because research helps me to place my idea and know that has this thing been done before, and if and as much as there's nothing new under the sun, and there's nothing like an original idea right now, because if your idea is original, then it means you're actually not learning from people. There has to be some elements of other people's work in it, and that brings the aspect of relatability. So once I find that that is true of my idea, that yes, it can be relatable, wow, brilliant, on a set. All right, yeah. So once I consolidate that and I know that my idea has a place into the world, then I will go on and start developing it actively. And development includes more research, includes writing, and all those sort of things, sharing with people, etc. After that, I go into pitching, which is usually the longest stage, because pitching involves just finding money, and finding people that believe in that idea enough for them to invest in it. So after I succeed with that, then pre-production kicks off. I find the necessary crews and all that, and then we do production, then post-production, then we premiere the movie. If it's a commission, we premiere it on the channel. If it's an indie movie, we do independent premieres, and then the rest we leave it to distribution for impact producing. Yeah.
Still on the same issue, we know the director is this creative person who visualizes the entire film. You've worked as a director. How do you ensure that you retain or maintain that creative control, like throughout the entire production?
First of all, the best way to retain a creative control is to allow an open mind, to allow the ideas of others to also seep in, because art is very subjective. What you come up with, other people see it differently, and they would add ideas onto it. However, it is always important that as a director you put down your vision in terms of visual aspects. What is it that you want in terms of the look, the feel, and everything that, because the technical crews will always work towards achieving that. In terms of the story, is just to ensure that if I'm working with the writer, we do our development properly and ensure that everybody understands what is it that we want to achieve, what are the themes that we want to achieve, and that they are coming out strongly through our characters. What are our subjective storyline, what are our objective storyline, and personal themes, universal themes, and all that. That's in writing. So after we've tightened our script up, the technical team for this is just to ensure that the visual feel and the look of the film is actually achieved. As far as the maybe camera department is concerned, I do my shortlists myself, and after I clear my shortlist, I discuss them with the DP. If they've done theirs, we compare notes and agree that this is how we want to achieve this, and also allow for a bit of creativity on set. Not a lot of it, but a bit of creativity on set, because you might reach on set and the location is not allowing the shortlist to be executed in its totality. So but basically allowing respecting the works of others, because if you respect the works of others, the people that you're working with, they also tend to respect your word, and they will listen to whatever you're saying, and they will always ask you for approval as the director. So that's just simple as that.
Okay, we've talked about the technical crew, and I want to delve on that issue. So how much input do you allow, or like to what level do you allow like these people, the producer, the DOPs, like how much input do you allow them to have when you are the director in a film set?
As I've said, with an open mind, a lot, because you know, when you choose to work with someone, you have to trust them that they're doing a good job, but you have also to oversee it and make adjustments, right? And if it doesn't work, you have to allow for discussion with them. And you know, because also as a director, you have to realize that the decisions that you're making are impacting a whole lot more. For example, if you choose a location that is not accessible, you're putting heavy work on the producer. You know, either they have to find extra money to get that location, or you know, extra days on the shoot and all that. So you have to understand that your decisions, if you make decisions in if you veto decisions and say that this is what I want and this is what goes, without allowing for discussion, you're also trifling on other people's you know, ability to work. So for example, the producer handles logistics and finances, and you always have to discuss the possibility of achieving something in terms of location, in terms of cast and everything with them, so that to see that they are also within budget. For the DP and something like that, you have to discuss the short list with them, so that we see, is this something that we can achieve, or you're asking for, you know, something that cannot be achieved within the time that you want. So for me, an open mind is what allows for anything to be executed properly. Yeah.
Still on the same case, you're the director, you have the vision. Another crew member comes with a different idea or a different concept. How do you ensure that you have balance, like their contribution to your own perspective or to your own vision?
I'll listen to it, and if it works, we'll go with it. If it doesn't work, we are not going with it. Just as simple as that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So do you have like instances or moments whereby like you had a particular vision, but you're never able to achieve it?
Oh yeah, many. It happens a lot. Like for the my recent film, When the Gods Argue, we had to cut out like 30 minutes of the film. And you know, 30 minutes of the film, that's serious. You might end up losing your story. And you know, that's just part of the vision that I lost, because the whole story, we had to cut big chunks of the story and leave them out to fit the channel's requirements, which was 90 minutes, and our film was going up to 120 minutes even after tightening the story. So that's just an example. Sometimes on set you have to do away with you have to drop scenes, and for various, especially when you're working with a tight budget, it's something that comes, and that's actually what makes a director. If you are able to lose 30 minutes of a show and still make sense of the story, then it shows that you as a director, you have that extraordinary abilities to tell those stories. And even if you find yourself that you've dropped scenes on set and you're still able to tell your story. So it happens most of the time. You can lose parts of the story and so on and so forth, but still be able to, you know, how you are able to put it together and achieve the whole story is what matters.
So like, I want us to talk about your style of directing. You've done a couple of works. So can you say that there's a particular style or there's a particular technique that you ensure that you use consistently in your works, maybe like in terms of camera work, editing, sound design? Is there like
not really, but for me, as I said earlier, I'm more of into performance, because if the performance is bad, even if the technical aspects of the film are good, you're definitely going to miss out. So I'm usually more into the performance. I don't know what you would call that, but that's just how I would call it. So I really don't have a particular nini per se, but I would say I'm pragmatic. A very pragmatic approach. If it doesn't work for me, I will discuss it with people, I won't just let anything go. I will discuss with the right departments and see if this can be done. If it can be done, then we drop it. If it can be done, or if it can be improved again, because there could be improvement, dropping, or actually executing it as it is. So I'm pragmatic like that.
You've said that you're very pragmatic. You don't have a style per se. So how do you ensure that you have achieved your storytelling?
Again, through discussions with like when you're selling your vision to your crew, that's actually, for me, I usually say the director's work is in pre-production, is in development all through to pre-production, because when now you get into production, it's rolling. You have very little control of, or even if you have control, like sometimes you have to accept the circumstances as they are and work with those. So I say the director's work is in pre-production and in development. If you don't sell your vision correct during development, that's to the storytellers, to the writers, and all that. If you don't sell it correctly during pre-production to the people that you're working with, then you'll definitely miss in production. So for me, I take preparation very seriously and planning. In fact, it takes longer than the shoot, so that I sit down with each department, my production designer, to ensure that the color palette is achieved that I want, that's also elevates what the picture that we want to tell. I sit down with my DP and discuss the mood, the feel, the look that I want. I work with the actors in rehearsal to work through the blockings, the tone, how they're supposed to behave, everything and all that. That's in pre-production. The rest of the crew members, because most of the time you do with the HODs. When you walk through the HODs, walk the vision, walk the HODs through your vision, and they get to share. For example, the cinematographer comes with the lighting technician, so I don't have to talk to the lighting technician. I have to talk to my DP, discuss all this short list, movements that I want, angles that I want, blah blah blah, and everything. So it's just selling your vision correct. There's nothing else to it, so that when the camera is rolling, I'm kicking back on the recliner and nothing else. It's just touch-ups here, adjustments, hapa kidogo kidogo, blah blah blah. Then when we get into post-production, I also ensure that my editor is involved in pre. I don't shoot, then go find an editor. I actually, after my script is done, for me, the editor is usually the first person I talk to before anybody else. I'll ensure that they read the story, they advise on, for example, the tempo, they understand the tempo, because there's editing has a tempo to it, and each story has a beat to it that it follows. A rom-com is different from a thriller, is different from a tragedy, is different, a comedic feel, and different from an action. So we discuss all those things, cuts, nini, everything. And as much as the discussions won't have to be as deep as possible, when we reach post-production, that's when now we begin to tell our story, as a director, I begin to author my story. So yeah, selling your vision correct, that's what works for me.
I watched a short film that you did, the one about Machakos.
Yes.
I want us to talk about your approach when it comes to music and sound. Like, how do you decide on that? What kind of approach do you use?
Sometimes that was early on, and that was very early on in my career, and that was based on the assignment that we were given for Macha Fest. It was basically one of the conditions was that we shoot in Machakos, and we were given a sentence or something. They usually gave a word, and I think for that year was flower. And for me, music is very important because music gives context. And since we were shooting in Machakos, I thought to make the movie more Machakos, I'd use Kamba songs. And at that particular point, we just used canned music. We picked what was there. We talked to the sound designer, and he advised us on what was there. I listened to the music, and actually, I don't know, cow, but what I know is that that music was promoting whatever was going on, especially per scene. So number one, for me, the music has to do that, because if it doesn't, then it means at the point where the audience is watching this film, the music will be distractive. We'll be listening to the music as opposed to following the story. All right. So for me, any music that I'm choosing, score, has to promote whatever I'm putting on the screen, so that we avoid audience distraction. We have two things. We have music, very good music, so we unfollow the story and start listening to that music. All right. But if it embeds in the story, whereby you are able to listen to this music and it promotes the story, then that works for me. And that's why I do original score right now. I have, once the script is done, I talk to the music director, we compose the music, if it's an album in totality, and then, but it has to promote my story. If it doesn't, out.
So do you think it's important for directors or any filmmaker to sit down with the composers and the sound designers to craft the music?
Absolutely, yes. They have to, because music plays a big part. You try doing anything without music. Yeah, when we are stressed, we go back to music. When we are happy, we go to music, and something, and so on and so forth. So I think it's very important that they are involved early on, and that it's not just left to the editor or to post-production to decide what kind of music is there. So it is an important part, and directors should sit down with composers to decide what is it that we want to accompany our scenes.
Okay. Have you encountered challenges through your line of directing?
A lot. Guys not turning up on set, equipment's not working sometimes, hard drives crashing and things like that. And sometimes just even going blank, you've been shooting for so long and you're just tired. So you're just on you're just rolling to finish these things. And as I say, these are now things that make a director, because you have to find a solution. Your decision making has to be like this. Yeah, so challenges are there. That's what makes film.
Is there a particular scene that you directed and felt like ilikuwa challenging, and how are you able to overcome that?
Yes, that was in my short film. It's called Napunyi. I was shooting a boxing film for the first time, and there was this scene that we were doing in the boxing hall in Kaloleni. So it was a very difficult scene, because first of all I was working with stars to say, and you know how that goes. Sometimes it just doesn't work out, but also just the whole architecture of that scene is not how I had envisioned it. But we had to work it, because sometimes also people come with the ideas, then we were shooting late in the night, guys are tired, so people are not feeling creative at that particular point, and you're the only person that's feeling creative. So it takes long to actually tell somebody, this is what I want. I remember after I achieved that scene, I almost lost focus, because nilikuwa nimefurahi sana mpaka the gaffer alikuwa amekasirika, sema ambieni huyo boy ajaribu kutulia mazee, hii ni nini na excite, but it's because I was trying to sell that vision to these guys. In 20-30 minutes I'm telling them, this is not what I want, this is what I want. We have to frame it like this. We have to go back to we had to go back to my mood board and tell them, this is what I was sold, and this, I don't want this, find me this. And it involved adjusting lights outside, adjusting some things inside, and so on and so forth. And guys were tired, they didn't like it. So walikuwa wamefika mahali penye to shoot twende, and me, I don't take that. Yeah.
So funding has been a challenge in Kenya for quite some time in the film industry. You're a director, you have a vision. How do you balance it when you face some budget constraint and maybe the production has some limitations? How do you navigate that situation?
So I have since learned to write into the budget. When I'm developing my story, I develop an achievable story. And I think this is what, especially young filmmakers, it's a trap they fall into. You're trapped into your dreams. And your dreams involves a villa. And you do not have a villa. okay? Yet your story unaweza iachieve rahisi sana kwa bedsitter yako, you know, because sometimes you also need to understand that it's about putting through a production. Okay, at some stage, at that level. Right now I can't just put through a production. I can't just do a production because I need to put through a production. I already have that portfolio. But at some level you need that portfolio, so you need to write into the budget. And even now, getting a funding is not easy. You know, you have to do pitchings here and there and over there, and you know, you have to learn how to write into the budget. And writing into the budget is look at your story. How many locations? How many unit movements? Because if you have a lot of unit movements, then it means you're going to lose a lot of time on set. If you have a lot of locations, then it means you're going to need more money to book these locations. That's why if you look at some of the stories, there's these, some of the soap operas are like some of the easiest, not easiest per se, but compared to film, some of the easiest to shoot, because the location is always revolving around. So that's writing into the budget. Keep the locations few. Write for few characters, very few characters that, you know, web that story well. Keep the unit movement down. Basically keep the budget down, and you'll realize that if you do this, you're even able to achieve more quality, because you have more time to set up, you have more time to work your scenes around, and so on and so forth. So I have since learned to write my budget down. That's how I'd say it.
So like when you talk about pitching, are there like particular sources whereby like who wanasema that when I go to this particular place, I'm sure and I'm guaranteed that I'm going to get the amount of money that I want?
There's a few, but you know, you are never always guaranteed, because as I've said, art is very subjective. People have to like your story to give you the kind of money that they want, and they also have to believe in the story to give you the money they want. But there are a few pitching competitions. You always have to stay looking out for them. You have to apply for residencies. Like I'm going for one in Kigali for my story. There's things like DFM, Durban Film Art, Durban Talents. There's Mashariki. There's Kenya Film Commission that does pitching competitions and so on and so forth. And there's also investors, maybe private investors that would want that. But also most important, you have to understand that you can also get some of this, because we're always looking for money to hire these things, isn't it? But you can also form partnerships with people that have this stuff and they could give you in kind. For example, an FX3 or something, if somebody has, a company has it, you can always talk to them and partner with them into the story, and they can give you that camera, hence wavering off that form of the budget. If it's writing, if it's development, if it's locations, you can always talk to friends and people, and they can give you these locations, and it supplements on the budget. So yeah.
I want us to talk about your personal connection to your work. I know you as a very easygoing guy, very flexible. How much or to what level can you say that your personal life is reflected to your films?
A bit of it. There always has to be a bit of you in something that you're doing. And if you know me well and you watch my films, you will know. You will know that this is part of it. But also I believe that putting that human, a bit of you in that story promotes relatability, because we are usually going through the same things. You know, it doesn't matter how old or how rich or how poor. We kind of always, for example, if it's a story of love, everybody goes through love sometimes, through family, through partners, and so on and so forth. So yeah, there's usually a bit of me, and I usually do it intentionally, because then that's what anchors the story into the plot and makes me actually achieve the full thing.
Is there work that you can say that this was very personal to me?
Not really. Not really, but all of my works have a bit of me.
I want us to talk about your evolution, right from when you began your first production to where you are right now. Have you said that your style of directing or the way you do your work has evolved like throughout all these years?
Yes, it has evolved, because now as I've told you, directing is anchored in process. If you miss the process, then definitely your work will show, the gaps will show. and you can see it through all my works, from my first film Hi-Fi Key to how I'm doing, because that was just a student film that we were doing to achieve portfolio. And from there we started, you could see that our work was improving, because I started doing short lists and not just waking up and shooting. I started doing short lists, I started doing briefings with characters. I started going deeper and deeper into pre-production and all that. I also started looking at other markets, viewing other people's work, because sometimes we write in, we tended to write in a vacuum, just write it because, idea imenikamia, naiandika haraka haraka, kesho asubuhi itawasee mko wapi nini na tuna shoot and all that. And I say that's good in some stage, because that helped me achieve some projects that if ningekaa nazo long, I wouldn't be able to shoot them. But right now I'm more into process that goes even into years, and I'm just okay with it. So it has changed in that manner, respecting process more.
So do you believe in change? And I want to put it in this way. We are in a current world right now whereby filmmakers wanaletewa concept and they are told like, you need to write in this particular way, or you need to have this particular theme or factor in your work. So like in short, you're writing like to maybe please the masses, you're writing to please the audiences, to please maybe the investors, nini. So how do you ensure that you have stayed true like to your vision and to what you believe in?
First of all, you have to realize that you have to make people happy. That goes without saying. You have to make people happy. So your writing has to make people happy, or it has to trigger people to, take an action. If it's not to make them happy, it has to trigger them to take an action towards something that maybe you're vouching for in your film, right? So for me, research informs that. Research informs that kind of thing, because when I talk to people, I get the relatability part of it. What is it that they want to hear right now? What is it that they want to see? And also just recognizing that you can't satisfy everyone, but you can get people talking. That also just gets me going in that aspect.
Okay. Would you take in money for some work that I don't really have like a vision for this, or I don't fully stand for this? Would you take money for that?
Depends bana penye huko na kimaisha. Inaweza kwa imekugonga bro, huna kakitu. Utachukua, but you see this is the beauty of art. Okay? You can take something and turn it around because you have that genius aspect in you, or you just have that magical touch with you, and everything you touch just turns into something good that people will enjoy, whether you believe in it or not. However, you have to accept that it will be more difficult for you to do work that you don't believe in, just for the sake of money. In fact, it will take itakusumbua. Yeah, it will be problematic to you because you won't be giving your best at that particular point. But I'd say I've never been in that kind of situation, luckily, because for me, I have been fortunate to direct my works that I have created. And that's why I always work hard to actually put out work that I have created myself, because then I get to believe in that and achieve what I want and get satisfied with that. Yeah.
Okay. Nice. You're an established filmmaker with lots of experiences. And when it comes to the audiences, to that particular person who doesn't have a clue of what film is and doesn't like understand the deep aspects of film, what can you say like are those aspects that fascinate them, like from a filmmaker's perspective? What can you say are those aspects that like fascinate them, and why do you think so?
For people that have never done film before?
No, like the audiences.
Audiences. Yeah. So it's me addressing people that have never done film before.
No, they haven't done film. You've done film and you've taken it to the audiences. What do you think are those aspects in film that will appeal to them?
Story. if your story can't keep people sitting glued on that seat, then you have failed, you know. So for me, it's first of all story. If the story is good, then picture comes in next. Okay, the picture gives it a plus. A good picture gives it a plus. And good picture is also tech. You know, like what are the movements? Are they meaningful? Are they promoting that story, or they are distracting that story? And then music. I think a lot of, I don't know about you guys, but for me, a lot of music I knew back then when I was even in campus came from the series that I used to watch. You know, that's how I discovered new music or some type of music that I loved and all that. So music is also something that you really have to be careful with. And of course, the biggest of them all is the people on screen. The people that you're working with on screen have to do the job right. If they don't do the job right and people are out there, your story is ruined. So that is that. And then, of course, the subtle one that people never recognize, but it's always there, which is directing itself. Because directing is now you turning that text into picture. How you have gone about it, how you've done it, how you've executed also makes people sit there and watch.
I know we've talked about the challenges that you've experienced throughout your production process. What can you say is your challenge now as a director? What is that particular challenge that you go through whenever you are in your filmmaking process?
Just getting money for my ideas. Yeah, my ideas are not very... they are not things you run into every day. They're not ideas you run into every day. Sometimes they feel dystopian kidogo, but getting the monies for it, especially the kind of budget that I need to run my ideas, has been a bit expensive, because if you watch my films, first of all, we have created costumes from scratch. It's not just bigger aspects of it is not where people have just come with the clothes that they have. You know, when you're shooting a regular idea, you can ask people to come with their clothes, and that would cut down the aspect of budget, locations and all that. So for me, big thing is the budget. If I can be able to get the budgets, and chafua mbaya.
To that particular person outside there who wants to be a director, what advice can you give them in this aspect? Mse anataka ku make it, but then it would cost them like to lose their own identity for them to achieve this commercial success. What can you tell them?
The choice is yours. Kila mtu ajibambe vile anadai. If you feel that's the route you want to go, then it's cool. You can take it up. But I'll also say it's good to be experimental. You know, it's always not everything. Everything is not always a bad thing. You know, even losing identity is not always a bad thing. A new identity is good. I mean, I'd love to appear in another country or island with a new identity and start a new life. It's the equivalent of art. You know, if you're able to flip over and do something different that is not you, that is not your signature, then that's a good thing. I think it's really a good thing. As long as you're ready to do it and believe in it, nobody's forcing you, or no circumstances forcing you, you go for it.
Okay. So have you ever heard of auteur directing?
Yeah, auteur directing.
Auteur directing.
Yeah.
Which of your works can you say is a purest representation of that, and why so?
All my works, because mi ndio author. Mi ndio nakonga nimesukuma hiyo kazi, decide nini nafaa hivi, how it looks, everything. And I'm the, you know, because the author model argues that the director is the true artist, you know, in how they manipulate the setting, the visual modes and all that. They lead, you know, they're leaders. They're not just technical people, because before the author model came through, it was that directors are just technical people. Yeah, that directors are just technical people, all right, and not artists. So for me, I author my work, and that makes me, yeah.
Is there one of your works that you can say out loudly that this is my best film, like this is the best work that I did?
That has to be Get Some Money, 2017. Yeah, and I remember I was telling somebody like, hey, hapa bana niliweka yote hapa, hakuna kitu ilibaki. But I was surprised when I directed other films. But even process-wise, it was very tasking. Even location-wise and all that, it was very, very tasking. So it has to be Get Some Money.
Okay. Are there like any future projects or genres that you'd say you'd want to do maybe in future?
Future projects, genres. For me, I've always been a big fan of fiction, but I'd like to try documentary filmmaking. I've not really executed a good documentary or a documentary per se. So for me, I've always been doing fiction, but I wouldn't mind going into documentary filmmaking. And I've been collecting some of the footages from industry. I hope to create a documentary one day that would be impactful, because documentaries are always about impact and less of entertainment. Fiction is more of entertainment, you know, and suspending belief, because you have to believe that that guy has jumped from the 9th floor and landed and not hurt himself, something that cannot happen, and that's purely entertainment. But for documentary is impact. When people watch that documentary, do they change, or does it trigger a conversation? So that's something I would like to try.
Talking about directing, especially in documentary filmmaking, how do you plan to imprint your outer signature in this particular genre?
The same way, just lead the process, because auto model is about leading the process. It's about you sharing your vision clearly with the people that you're working with. It's about you having a proper understanding of the technical needs and both technical and story needs of your, of your project. So basically lead from start to finish, and not over delegate, but you yourself taking charge of whatever is it that you're doing and whatever is it that you want to say. So same way.
Okay, they say change is inevitable, and we are living in a world that is pacing, vitu zinakimbia. Do you see your style of directing changing, like in later days, like in future?
Yeah, depends, because we learn every day, and I'm always learning every day. So if I come across a training that requires my style to change or informs my style of directing, definitely I'm open to that kind of change. As it is right now, I'm just doing it the way I'm doing it.
Okay. I want to ask this. You've talked about most of your work leaning towards that spiritual aspect. That's a theme. So are there like other themes that maybe you'd want to explore right now, or styles?
Yes, I have explored a few in the past. Like for example, Napunyu had nothing spiritual with it. Hi-Fi Kitu had nothing spiritual in it. Rolling On had nothing spiritual with it. So I have explored, and something that I'm working on right now involves a bit of sports in it, and so on and so forth, but also has that spiritual aspect, because I said, as humans, it's hard to deal with humans without being a bit spiritual, because life in itself is even spiritual, and it's almost like an illusion. We have to believe in something. But I am open to, trying other genres and all that, and just diversifying my portfolio.
Is there a current project that you're working on right now?
Yes.
Gani?
You want to know about it?
Just the name. No spoilers.
Yeah, the current one that I'm actively working on it, and that I'll also be going for a residency for. I was in Kigali last year, 2024, to pitch it in Kigali International Film Market, and it was accepted. So I hope the residency goes through, and I get to write the film. So it was a writing residency, because I've been trying to write it for long, but to get writers, but people have different demands, different schedules, and it just hasn't been working for me. So I decided to take the bull by the horns and said, I'll write this myself anyway, because I can, naeza. naweza mwezi tukua that team nazungumzia next week kaeni uko na next week zenyu mimi mwenyewe nitaandika hii kitu sasa. So wetu Kigali pitch, the project is called Musambwa, and I wouldn't delve much into it, but I'm creating it. It's an exciting project, by the way. If it gets to be done, yeah, that's one for the books. Yeah, thank you.
How do you approach a scenario whereby you have limited resources or you don't have much as you want to, like in a film production?
Partners and social bonds are very important. For example, one of my organization, Cheza Cinema, is out to create that, to help people, filmmakers, especially young filmmakers, create social bonds, because you realize as you're existing, somebody there has a lighting equipment that they don't know what to do with. They can't tell story with the lighting equipment. Somebody else has a camera, somebody else has a mic, somebody else is good with writing, somebody else is good with something else. And basically that's just how it's a model that I've used to make my films. Up to date, I'll say 2022 is the first time I actually, 2022 or 2022 is the first time I bought a camera. Actually, I owned a camera.
Yours?
Yes, mine, that I can say this is a camera of mine. Prior to that, no single equipment, not even a mic. I didn't even have a mic. But I made great films. How? By just talking to the person next to you and asking, uncle yangu ako na hii. Say, okay. Nani najua huyu ako na hii. Oh, okay. So you write a story, sell to people, sell the vision to them. They believe, they come together, we make this story without a single shilling. In fact, 2020 is the first time I paid people for a project. That my producer got to pay people for a project. Prior to that, it was just coming together and making a film. And you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised how people are willing and willing to help you if your project is good. Because now that's another thing. You really have to put through a good project for people to read it and believe in it and just come. For example, Get Some Money we shot in Kajiado, in the middle of nowhere, and actors were driving from Nairobi to that middle of nowhere to shoot a film without a single pay at all. So it's just that, like, social capital. I call it social capital. You have to be able, first of all, as a filmmaker, you have to be able to build a social capital. If you know social capital, I see people, they say, oh, I'm an introvert. There's terms like house rotting, there's what, and stuff like that. Hey, you'll house rot and rot for life. So as much as I encourage you to choose your contacts carefully, I usually say, don't just be available also. You're just there with like huko tu kila mpango mazao umetokelezea, unaona. I discourage that, but be very strategic also in your connections and build a strong social capital. If a friendship is not meaningful, then just leave it, because clearly there are people, for me, like in life, there are people I drink with, there are people I do business with, and I keep it like that. I don't do each and everything with everybody. And even the people I drink with, I talk business to them, because I know kama narudisha mkono ni investment. Unajua, si kukufurahisha to keep close as my friend. I've grown to that. It comes also with age and maturity. You come to realize some of these things late. But as I said, like for example, my organization Cheza Cinema is out to teach people things like that. Like how do you invest strategically with your time? What connections do you make? How do you get people to believe in your vision? You have to write a good project. You have to stop being entitled and just thinking that guys are leaving you out of plans, because pengine wanakuacha out of plans because pia wewe mwenyewe vile kuangalia kuna value una bring on the nini. But for me, I've been able to come up on these ranks because the people I have worked with believe I have something to offer. Okay, and that's what I'm just continuing through my my company and all that. So it's absolutely possible to make stuff without owning anything at all, apart from a good story.
For those who may want to join your company, Cheza Cinema, how can they have that leverage?
First of all, you have to have a portfolio. Yeah, you have to have a portfolio, because it's about people that are doing something with themselves. It's not just about I don't know if it's in the Bible, because mangati God helps those who help themselves. I don't know. Then but it's something that says that. So a portfolio is good. If you have a portfolio, then we can be able to have a discussion. And because we are looking out for very specific areas of production and departments that also elevate us. You know, as much as we are helping you, you also have to help us, because we want to be a brand in terms of mentorship and apprenticeship and all that. And we can't just pick you from zero. That's impossible. So there has to be a track record. You've done something, then we can be able to elevate you to another level. Yeah.
So do you have like departments, or like does one need to be like fully focused into film?
Yes and no, because you know, as an organization, we need different. We have an array of things. We need, for example, people that are business minded, and they would be able to, you know, do logistics for us, business logistics for us, administration work for us. There's tech work, you know, things like editing, producing, there's writing, there's all those things, you know, because our model is called a content factory. We're doing the content factory model, and basically involves from planning all these things that I've been telling you, from planning all the way to execution, you know. And you'll find that a lot of people get stuck in between. People shoot films and they end up to what I call, people write films and they end up to what I like to call desktop films. Your script yenye uliandika iko tu hapo kwa desktop inangoja. It's a dream, it remains a dream. So the factory, the content factory model is here to like ensure that we we work that through, and you'll find that it's impossible for one person to, you know, to make that happen. And we also want visibility for our work, so we are working with even social media managers, Nini, and all that. We are going into funding. How can people secure funding and all that? That's why we say when you're coming through, you have to have a portfolio of some sort. Yeah.
Tukimalizia, I want us to talk about your current thoughts about the film industry in Kenya. Yeah, what's your take about the film industry?
I think it has grown, having been there for some time, a period of time, like around, because me I usually count my campus years as practice, because I started practicing then, music ungoja. I started practicing industry standard things then, and putting my things into the industry. And that would be about 15 years right now, counting, right? And from then to now, I can say we've really grown. The diversity is insane, and right now, actually, filmmakers are working. That I can say, they are working. There are people who leave their house in the morning, go on a set, and come back in the evening, and it's a full job. That wasn't the case that 15 years ago when we were even studying film. In fact, when we were studying film and we were in KU, I remember some of the guys in the industry were saying, why would you go to campus to study film? Okay? But years later, here we are actually practitioners, active practitioners. And you'll find that the guys that, the batches that were in KU early on are the ones that have flooded the industry. And those are the ones that came back here and built this department here, the Department of Performance here. And you'll see the same thing, like right now KCS students are flooding the industry and all that. So the industry has changed in that. First of all, when the industry started training, when people started training actively, that's when we started improving. So guys have appreciated learning, and right now guys are even teaching. You can see a lot of people, a lot of filmmakers sharing their expertise on the internet. And we used to dream about Netflix. Now we are all over Netflix and things like that. So maybe, you know, I'll say we've grown. There's really been that. The graph has always been going, and it's still going up. It's not plummeting.
Okay. For somebody who is out there and may want to do directing, there's film directing, there's TV directing, there's theater directing. What can you say are the differences, and how can one establish him or herself to fit maybe in a particular category?
First of all, some of these things come as aspects of chance. Okay, you might find that you've ended up in TV and you have to learn TV, or maybe theater and you have to do theater, or film and you have to do film. And sometimes it's not what we set out there to do. And sometimes some of these differences, you find them when you do them. You know, like our art, the creative arts is an art you learn by practice. You can't learn by theory, you learn by doing. You do a mistake, then you learn out of it. However, there's differences. Theater, of course, there's no need to discuss the difference in theater. Theater is just theater. That's live. You know, you're directing people on stage. The other between TV and film is just process. I'll say it's just process and the equipment involved. Okay, so you'll find as much as there's planning in TV, sometimes you have to work with spontaneity and a set structure. Like there's a set structure. This is what you have to do, and if you don't do this, then that doesn't become TV. It becomes something else. And in film is a bit, versatile. It's flexible. You can try out things. You can be experimental with film. With TV, not so much, because you'll find that if you start being experimental with TV, even in terms of lighting alone, you will lose some people. You can't be experimental with news and light. Light, the light has to be the way it is, all right? Maybe just a bit of movement in terms of jib, but hata ukiangalia, it's always the same thing. So TV is very repetitive, and I would say for TV, it's the producers that take the limelight. Directors are still technical people in TV, because for them, they direct more of directing the shots. Okay, they don't direct the characters. You can't direct the newsreader and all that and something like that. Okay, so that's the difference. But when it comes to film, you work with characters, you control the technical, you have a lot of room to play around. So that's just the difference. And you'll find even most TV directors venture in film, even people that studied TV, most of the people that are in Kenya Film Commission, Kenya Mass Communication, and they are studying film, are actually now doing, they are studying TV, are actually now doing film, because it gives them that creative freedom to actually put through what they want. Even in terms of dialogue, okay? A lot of people, they use the kind of dialogue that you want, curse words, whatever, and all that. Language is not restricted, and so on and so forth. But in TV, you find that you have to use this language or that language. If you mix something else, then you lose your audience. So film offers a lot of flexibility. TV is a bit rigid. Theater is just theater. You can have theater offers also a lot of flexibility and all that. But in the two, I'll say producers are the stars, and in film, it's the director who's the star.
Okay, so where can we find your works? Where can we find your social media pages and all that? Na pia ya Mcheza Cinema, don't forget that too.
Yes, I exist on Instagram. I'm pretty much active on Instagram as Biko_Nyongesa. And you'll always find me tagging my Mcheza Cinema works and all that, but it's at Mcheza Cinema. I'm also very active on LinkedIn as Biko Nyongesa. TikTok I've not been active for a while, but also niko huko TikTok, Biko_Nyongesa. And my works you can watch Showmax. I'm on Showmax when my film When the Gods Argue is on Showmax. I've also acted on some things that are available on Showmax. That Subterranea is there. Yeah, and we are working to put more of my work on platforms that are available to take in my work. My Movies Africa, Napunyi is on My Movies Africa. You can watch it there. Rent it for 50 shillings or own it for I think 100 or so shillings. You can own it for life. Own it, which means you can always be watching it whenever you want. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much.
Deezer.